You know how Stephen King has this incredible expanded universe where everything is connected? Well, what if I told you that the creatures terrorizing the town of From might actually be cosmic cousins of Pennywise, that ancient interdimensional clown terror that haunted Derry? I'm talking about the possibility that both From's monsters and Pennywise are servants of the same cosmic hierarchy, entities that exist beyond our reality, pulling the strings from dimensions we can barely comprehend. There's actual evidence hiding in the DNA of both properties that make this theory way more plausible than it might sound at first. So let's explore the implications of this theory in this video. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Understanding Pennywise, ancient evil from beyond. Before we can connect the dots between From and it, we need to understand exactly what Pennywise really is. According to Stephen King's mythology, Pennywise, or simply it, is an ancient trans-dimensional entity that originated in a cosmic void called the Macroverse. This isn't just some fancy sci-fi concept King threw in for kicks. The Macroverse is basically the void that contains and surrounds everything, including our universe. It's space beyond space, reality beyond reality. Pennywise and other godlike beings call this place home. When the Losers Club members glimpse the Deadlights, which is essentially what Pennywise really is underneath all the shape-shifting and illusions, they see something incomprehensible. In the films, it's described as glowing lights swimming through infinite walls of what looks like red-hot flesh. It's consciousness itself, basically, wrapped in cosmic horror. And this being has been feeding on fear and flesh in Derry, Maine, for thousands of years, waking up every 27 years to hunt. The key thing to understand is that Pennywise doesn't follow the rules of our world because it doesn't originate from our world. It can shapeshift, manipulate reality, project itself into photographs, appear and disappear at will, and cast illusions so powerful they drive people insane. This is an entity that exists on a completely different plane of existence and just happens to be feeding in our reality. The monsters of From, equally otherworldly, equally mysterious. Now let's talk about From, because these monsters are absolutely not your typical Hollywood creatures, and that's where the connection starts to get really interesting. The residents of From's mysterious town have slowly been piecing together what these creatures actually are, and what we've discovered is that they're far more complex than simple supernatural killers. First off, they only hunt at night, which already separates them from normal predators. They're intelligent, disturbingly so, and they seem to possess an almost omniscient knowledge about their prey. They know things about people they shouldn't possibly know, information that creatures have no way of gathering through normal means. But here's what really connects them to Pennywise. The creatures operate by supernatural rules. They can't just walk into a house whenever they want. Talismans placed at doorways repel them unless someone actively invites them inside. This is the exact same rule system you see with vampires in fiction. And more importantly, it mirrors the kind of cosmic laws that govern Pennywise's existence. It's not just random violence. It's a structured game with specific rules that these entities must follow. The town itself seems to be orchestrating everything. The creatures are almost like soldiers, or more accurately, like servants of some greater force. And here's the wild part. In From Season 3, we learned the original residents of this strange place made a deal with an unknown entity. They sacrificed their children for immortality, and ever since, the town has been perpetuating that cycle, using these creatures to continue hunting down and feeding on people. The connection. It's all about cosmic hierarchy. So here's where this really ties together. Both Pennywise and the creatures of From are servants of forces beyond our comprehension. Pennywise serves the Macroverse. It's basically a cosmic predator sent to feed in our dimension. The creatures of From are servants of a supernatural force that's running a specific, calculated operation. But what if that force is part of the same cosmic hierarchy as Pennywise? What if there are multiple interdimensional entities operating across different realities, each feeding on fear, flesh, or something equally sinister? Think about the mythology King has built across his works. In the Dark Tower series, we're introduced to concepts like the Macroverse, the Deadlights, and the idea that reality itself is fractured and failing. There are tears in reality called thinnies that connect different worlds. These thinnies are places where the boundary between dimensions is so thin that beings from one world can slip into another. They're chaotic, dangerous places where worlds collide. Now, what if the town in From isn't just some random pocket dimension? What if it's accessible through a thinny? What if the creatures and the entity controlling them are using the same cosmic infrastructure that allowed Pennywise to reach our world in the first place? The logic works perfectly. A thinny opens up, something vast and otherworldly slips through, and it begins its work in a new dimension. Pennywise through the Thinny, a new feeding ground. Here's my theory, and I want you to think about this carefully. Pennywise has been hunting in Derry for millennia, waking up every 27 years to feed on fear. But what if Pennywise isn't the only entity doing this? What if there are multiple cosmic predators, all operating out of the same macroverse, all finding different Thinnies that lead to different worlds and different feeding grounds? In the Dark Tower series, we learned that the Thinnies are specifically described as places where reality is very thin, where the boundary between worlds and dimensions is eroded. Kings established that multiple beings can use these tears in reality. Why couldn't the entity behind From be another cosmic predator, just like Pennywise, operating through a similar tear in the fabric of reality? The creatures in From display the same kind of intelligence and purpose that Pennywise shows. They're not mindlessly killing, they're hunting with purpose, following rules, orchestrating fear. What if Pennywise is part of a larger cosmic society of entities, each with their own hunting ground? Pennywise claims Derry. The entity behind From claims that town. They might not interact directly, but they're part of the same fundamental framework of interdimensional horror. They're the same type of being, just operating in different realities. The Stephen King connection. Why From feels like a King story. Stephen King himself has stated that From is his current favorite show. He didn't write it, but he's clearly impressed by it. And if you look at the DNA of the show, you can absolutely see why. From has all the hallmarks of a Stephen King story, especially the kind of stories that tie into his larger multiverse. You've got a small town trapped in extraordinary circumstances. You've got children who are key to understanding and potentially defeating the supernatural force at work. You've got symbols and mystical objects, the talismans, the glyphs, the mysterious mocks, that all echo the kind of supernatural infrastructure King builds across his works. You've got a battle between ordinary people and cosmic evil. But more than that, From operates on Stephen King logic. The way the town functions, the way the monsters behave, the way the characters slowly piece together the truth about their situation. It all feels like King's multiverse. And that's because From's creator, John Griffin, seems to have studied King's work meticulously. The show is practically a love letter to King's thematic obsessions, the intrusion of the extraordinary into ordinary life, the way communities respond to crisis, the idea that there are forces beyond our understanding, operating just outside of perception. It feels like Griffin is deliberately drawing a thread between From and the broader King multiverse. And if From exists in a world where there are cosmic entities making deals and orchestrating supernatural events, then why wouldn't those entities be connected to Pennywise? The symbol connection. Evidence in the details. There's another layer to this theory that I find genuinely compelling. Throughout From, a mysterious symbol keeps appearing. It's a circle with intersecting lines, and it appears in the tunnels where the creatures sleep, in prophetic visions, in journals. Everywhere the characters look, this symbol is there. This kind of recurring visual motif is quintessential Stephen King. In The Dark Tower, King uses the image of the rose across multiple books to create thematic connections. He's talked about how a single image can bring into a story all the power implicit in other stories that share the same image. It's what King scholars call a super illusion. What if the symbol in From is King's way of visually marking entities that belong to the same cosmic hierarchy? What if it's a sigil that indicates this entity is part of the macroverse network? We don't see Pennywise marked with this symbol, at least not overtly, but we do see Pennywise surrounded by symbols and mystical geometry throughout it. The idea that both entities operate under a similar cosmic framework with similar mystical underpinnings makes complete sense from a narrative perspective. The nature of the trap. Different manifestations, same purpose. One thing that ties this together, both Pennywise and the entity controlling From are essentially creating traps for their victims, but they're manifesting those traps differently based on the nature of their feeding grounds. Pennywise lures children to their deaths in the sewers of Derry, feeding on their fear for 27 years before hibernating. It's a cyclical process, highly organized, ritualistic. The entity in From, on the other hand, has created an entire pocket dimension, a town where people get trapped and then systematically hunted and psychologically broken down. Different mechanics, but the same fundamental purpose: isolation, fear, consumption. What if the difference in their manifestations simply reflects their different circumstances? Pennywise exists in a fixed location in our world, in Derry, feeding cyclically. The entity in From exists in a pocket dimension accessed through a Thinny, running a continuous operation with no temporal cycle. They're adapted to their respective environments, but they're fundamentally the same type of being operating under the same cosmic framework. Marvelous verdict. What if this is a cosmic web we're only beginning to understand? So here's what I'm suggesting. From isn't just a coincidental homage to Stephen King. It's evidence that the King multiverse is far broader than we initially thought. These cosmic entities don't just exist in Derry or the Dark Tower's midworld. They're scattered across multiple dimensions, connected through Thinnies, operating under the same ancient cosmic rules. Pennywise might be the most famous example of this interdimensional predator, but it's not the only one. The creatures of From and their controlling entity appear to be be operating under the same exact framework. They're part of the same cosmic hierarchy of horror. And the beauty of this theory is that it doesn't require From to be officially set in King's universe. The narrative logic works perfectly whether or not that's the creator's intention. The fact that both entities operate under rule systems, both create sophisticated traps, both feed on fear and death, both command servants, and both seem to originate from beyond our reality, it all points to a shared origin point in the cosmic void that King's been describing across decades of work. We don't fully understand the macroverse, we don't fully understand how thinnies work or what's really operating behind the scenes across King's multiverse. But watching From, seeing how the monsters operate, understanding the game being played in that cursed town, it feels less like coincidence and more like evidence of a much larger cosmic conspiracy happening across dimensions. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this unique theory, and also offer your take on the ongoing series Welcome to Derry. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.